Welcome to the All Ambient podcast, where we dig into the creative process, hear untold stories, and explore the brilliant minds behind some of the finest ambient music out there. I'm your host, Mike Graff. I'm excited to be in this together with you. Let's get going. Hey everybody, here we are again for another edition of the All Ambient Roundtable. We had a great time chatting. Today, Kirk, Marshall, Ben, and myself dug through the concept of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is one of those things that I think universally applies to everybody. It can do so in different ways, in unique ways to each of us, but I think it's something that just about every human on the planet identifies with in some way, shape, or form. So it was really interesting to hear the different perspectives on how imposter syndrome has played its way out in the life of a creative pursuit, a creative career. So it was really great to let our guards down and get after it a little bit. I hope that there's something here that's a great takeaway for you. There's a lot of unique perspectives, and it was a really special conversation. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Today's edition of the All Ambient Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again. We are here for another edition of the All Ambient Roundtable, and I am joined by three people who I could not be happier to get together with tonight, with Ben Tatlow, Kirk Smith, and Marshall Usinger. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we doing?
Hello.
Doing well, thanks.
Doing well.
Good. Awesome. It's great to be together. We're in summer mode over here in the Graff family. I'm sure Kirk and, I'm sure everybody in this hemisphere, I suppose, is in summer mode. And yeah, we're starting to kick it up. Kirk, are your kids, do you guys do a bunch of summer activities and everything?
We try to, yes. The first thing is like changing gears from school world to summer world. And then once we get a handle on that, we try to do a couple of trips.
Yeah.
And a couple of traditions. We're actually doing one of my favorite traditions tomorrow morning.
Oh, really?
We go blueberry picking. There's a little orchard.
Nice.
It's this it's like they've been there for 40 years out in Mississippi, and they have this massive orchard of blueberry trees, basically.
Oh, that's
and you get a little bucket and tie it on your waist, and you go out there and you fill them up. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's amazing. Love it. Marshall, how about you guys? Do you have any fun kiddo plans, or do they get into stuff over the summer, or what does that look like for you?
Well, my little fella, he's got some summer camps going on he likes to do.
Love it.
He's really into Minecraft right now, which
boy.
I assume you guys know about Minecraft, right?
Yeah. Yep. How do you pronounce that? Minecraft.
Is that different than yours, Craft?
Yeah, Minecraft.
Oh,
so he's doing a Minecraft Lego camp next week.
Very cool. Wow.
Which will be great. Speaking of Minecraft, let's make this about me for just a minute instead of my kids, but I just ordered a Minecraft vinyl that was just released because Minecraft is ambient music. I don't know if you guys knew this, but like the sounds are like very serene and ambient. And like the vinyl description was like, if you like ambient cinematic music, this is like an album that you want to order.
That's awesome.
And once I kind of saw, I got some email about it. So I told my little dude, I was like, check this out. And he's super stoked. That's kind of cool.
Awesome.
But
collab, Minecraft collab right now. If you're listening, Minecraft, come hard.
I swore, Marshall, you were going to say, you're talking about your son and the Minecraft camp. You're like, oh, speaking of Minecraft and this thing that I've been doing, I swore you were about to say, I just finished this build that I've been working on for the last year and a half just put the final brick.
Yeah. I don't know how I don't know how to do Minecraft. I've tried and I just kind of like float around and I'm not very good, but I did have a song of mine placed in a Minecraft something or another once, which was kind of cool.
Sweet.
But that's about as close as that's my coolest Minecraft thing.
That's a pretty cool Minecraft thing. I like it.
Yeah. Other than that, we'll see if we do. We don't have any firm trips and stuff planned up yet, but they've got a lot of summer camp stuff going on that they like to do. And we'll see what else we get up to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ben, what do the next few months look like for you and your fam?
Yeah, kid in school for another month or so. And then, we have pretty much the holidays of July and August. Amazing. So we've got a little bit of time before then. The July and August also happen to be the very hottest month. So right now it's actually really nice. So it's kind of good to do stuff outside. But when it gets to July, August, it can be a little intense. So we'll see what that means. It probably means some, a lot of time at the pool, a lot of time at the beach, but also a lot of time inside. But we're going to head to Thailand for a couple of weeks, which will be lovely in July. On. So we're looking forward to that. And then we'll kind of see what happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds great.
How about you, Mike?
We're a little bit of this, a little bit of that. My boys are both going to just some basketball camps nearby, just, day camps and do that. But they're doing quite a few of them, all by choice. We just said, what would you like to do? And they were like, may I do every one of them? And I was like, you do as many as you want. So, so they'll do that. Then actually, and the boys, so I mean, Amelia has some fun stuff too, but she's still little enough. I mean, Marcia, just they're like, you get to have fun with them, but it's also not a whole bunch of like structured things that you're sending. Yeah. Yep. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But no, they're also both of age to go to like to the, sleepover camp. So they were both going to the camp that Kate and I met at back in the day when I was doing music there. And she was a counselor there 15 plus years ago. They are going, which is great. And they go separate weeks too. So the whole camp is like dedicated to just like a couple grades per week, like 100 150 kids, but it's like all their age, which is pretty fun. So so they get kind of their own individual camp experience, and that'll be good. And that's down pretty close to where my wife grew up in the southwest corner of Minnesota. So always a little bit of a nostalgia blast to go down there. It'll be good.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. And lots of music. Let's make some music.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get it, dude. Yeah.
Let's get it.
Yep.
Well, we got some stuff to talk about, and I'm looking forward to it. But before we dig in, I would love to hear a little bit about, and actually, Kirk, I heard that you guys just went on a vacation as well, but there was a specific vacation that not even necessarily planned, I don't think, but Marshall and Ben, you guys were both in the UK at the same time, like just within the last couple weeks. And first off, that's amazing. And I'm already envious of the fact that you guys got to hang, but also just what a wild coincidence. Because you didn't initially plan to be there at the same time, did you? Or did you kind of figure it out? And then, tell me the story. I want to hear the story.
Mm-hmm. I had planned to make a trip out there.
Yep.
Initially I think the initial reason I planned to go out there was to go see Kiasmos, was my motivation for the trip.
Right.
And
what a great motivation too.
I mean, yes, great initial motivation. And the fact that I have always, I have never been to the UK.
Right on.
So I have always wanted to go because of this great community that we're a part of, that we all know some people over there. So that was a kind of an additional thing. And then I think Ben kind of had some stuff you kind of needed to get over there for, right?
Yeah. Basically family stuff. And, it's one of those things where kind of everything lined up. I needed to head over there over the next, like in the space of about a couple of months. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And my dad was also in the UK at the same time, which was fun. I don't get to see him all that much. He lives in Sweden.
Yeah.
So it was just cool. It was kind of everything, coalesced, came together in basically a space of about a week. And it was like, oh, okay. Well, then I'll head over and get to see bunch of family, do the few other bits and pieces I needed to in London, and get to see Marshall, which was amazing. And just a really fun time. And I think we got to see quite a few new places, but also new people. Well, not new people, I guess you could say people we know well but have never met in person. So that was just super fun.
Yeah,
that's so great. I mean, I know, some of the highlights must have been just, getting to hang out with each other and with the other artists you guys ran into. And of course, the Kiasmos show, I would have killed to have been at that show. Holy cow. Mm-hmm. I was just chatting with Bobby Turner earlier. Turner?
Was he on today?
Yeah. I just did an interview with Bobby earlier, and he was like, man, that show. And you guys got to hang with him too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah. You know this now, but such a sweet guy. And it felt like it was a little bit dicey when we were getting together with him, because neither of our phones were like half working. And
fun.
That was kind of, it was whatever. I didn't know what to expect with my phone, but we were just DMing on Instagram, and I kept being like, I think he's getting my messages. And then me and Ben are sitting at this bar. We're just like, we just have a beer. I'm like looking at my phone. I'm just like, I think it's, and Bobby just pops up and he's like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm just like, oh, he just like walked up to the table. I was like, oh, thank God you got my messages. God, man, I was like scared. So yeah,
that's awesome.
So yeah, we got to hang with him, and that was when Ben and I were out, of course, and then I actually went out to Copenhagen for a few days. Then a few days later, that was when I came back for the show, and then got to hang out with Bobby again at the Chiasmo show, which was very fun and slightly chaotic, but an incredible show. Yeah.
Slightly chaotic in the sense of just getting to the show, or the show itself was chaotic?
Yes, all of that.
Okay.
All of those things. Yeah. I flew back to London from Copenhagen on the day of the show.
Whoa.
So my flight was early-ish in the day. I thought I timed it well, but it was just kind of a process getting there and everything. Yeah. But, made it. It was great. Yeah. It was surreal, man. It was just surreal being out there, and just Ben, I don't know if you felt, I mean, I'm sure you did feel that same way, just like me. I mean, meeting Ben in person and a couple of those other guys who we've been talking for years, at this point. And in a way, it's like, it's surreal that they're sitting in front of you, but it also didn't feel like, right. It's kind of, you're amazed by it in a way, but it also felt like we're just hanging out like this, like normal too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of just a surreal, very cool feeling to just, meet everybody that you've been talking with for such a long time,
Yeah, for sure.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I totally get what you're saying. We're like, if any one of you were to just like walk in my studio right now and just sit down on the couch, like I wouldn't think a thing of it. Be like, hey man, like so good to see you. And then also the realization of, holy cow, like I'm in person with the Ben Tatlow, the Kirks. You know what I mean? Like just the craziness of that. Marshall, I know you and I have gotten the chance to sit in this room together, and it's the best. It's hard to, it's hard to kind of wrap your head and heart around just, I love this. The online platform is great. The fact that we get to do this is great, but nothing replaces being in the same room for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Ben and I mean, we talked a bit about just the, community of musicians that we're in, who are all over, and me getting to go to Copenhagen too and see some people there. Yeah. I mostly hung out with Thomas there, who you guys know Thomas. Yeah, he showed me all over the place. Like the day I flew in there, he picked his kids up from school and then basically took them home, and then came and met me in my hotel, showed me all over the place. We had a couple beers and walked me all over kind of like the main city. And then the next day he picked me up and took me to his house for dinner. And I'm like, I'm sitting with Thomas and his family at home having dinner in like the countryside of Copenhagen, and like,
it's wild.
It's just kind of mind blowing, I mean, it was amazing. And Henrik was there. You guys know Lauga. Yeah, he came out. And another close friend of Thomas is named Jacob David, who's an artist with Moderna Records. He came out.
Oh, cool.
And very, very talented pianist. Yeah. So us four guys were there, and just very like, zoom back lens kind of thing of like very cool place that like music kind of brings us to that, it's kind of wild.
That's so great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you all had that opportunity.
Yeah.
But community is huge.
Yeah, it was good stuff, man.
Kirk, tell me a little bit more about your trip. You guys just went on a family vacation yourselves? Did you went to the UK as well, I assume? I mean, it's kind of the trend, right?
I wish. I'd love to. No, mine was more traditional family vacation down at the Gulf Beach. And
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Alabama, or where'd you go?
It was about an hour and a half east of Panama City.
Okay. Yep.
And it was pretty great. We loved to boogie board. So we had some couple good wave days, couple rainy days, couple sunny days. The thing that happened that's never happened before was we were finishing up one morning of doing some boogie boarding, and I got my 4-year-old on my shoulder. He's just learned how to ride waves, and so he's excited. I got him on my shoulder. We're taking a break for the day, going up to shore, and I'm about 6 feet from the sand, and I feel this pinch because I've been bitten by a crab. Have you ever been bitten by a crab?
Mm-mm.
They kind of pinch you, and it's scary and it hurts, but it's not like terrible. So I felt this pinch and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then this surge of pain followed the pinch. And I was like, this is not a crab. I don't know what's going on. So I thought it might have been, a jellyfish.
Oh, yep.
But jellyfishes don't pinch. And then there was blood. And then I was like, I put my boy down and kind of collapsed to the ground. And I was like, something happened. Something's not right. I thought maybe I had twisted my ankle or something because it felt like I sprained my ankle.
Yeah.
But then it felt like my leg was on fire. So it turns out I had been stung by a stingray.
Wow.
I stepped on a stingray and it was not happy about it.
No.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And so when I tell you the pain, there's no pain I've ever felt for that long of a period of time that I can actually remember consciously.
My goodness, Kirk.
And it was about 5.5 hours of just like,
oh man.
Luckily there was a doctor, our friend who was a doctor was at the place. And so I'm talking to him. I'm like, do I need to go to the emergency room? And they're like, well, we'll look at 20 minutes. And if the venom isn't like moving up your leg, then we're, pro tip to anybody who ever gets stung by a stingray. First thing you want to do is put it in hot water, as hot as you can stand, but not like, don't burn yourself.
Yeah.
And that helps minimize the venom. I did not learn that fact until about an hour and a half in when I had ice on it. Because it was swollen and, so you're like, put ice on it.
Man.
Yep.
Not what to do. So don't do that. Don't put ice on it. And then, take a lot of Benadryl and Tylenol as much as you can, I guess.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Okay, so like postmortem, are you okay? Like, is your leg okay?
So the Steve Irwin guy, he did die from a stingray, but it was because it hit him in the heart. And I know now why that would have killed him, because basically my leg seizes like the muscles and everything. It's like, and then it's filled with the venom. So if that happened in your heart, that would be bad.
That would be a not good thing. Yeah.
But people don't typically die from just straight up venom, like a snake bite or something. You don't typically die from stingrays. So once we solved that, we were like, okay, we're gonna live. That's good. And then basically it felt like I sprained my ankle for, even now it's been 3 weeks and it's been pretty tender. And it did actually start to get infected. So I had to go and get some antibiotics.
Yeah.
So dude, it's still tender for walking and stuff like that, but it's on the mend. But man, I tell you what, so now you got to shuffle. So when you're in the water, when you're in the beach now, you shuffle, you don't step. And because apparently that's what lets them know you're coming. They can get out of the way because,
Interesting.
So for the rest of the week, my boys were shuffling. I didn't go in the water, but my boys were just holding their boogie boards and just shuffling. It took them like 20 minutes to get out into the waves.
That's so funny. Oh my goodness. Well, hey, I think I speak for all of us when I say we're glad that you are not dead at the bottom of the Gulf. Kirk, thank you.
I appreciate
that's something
that.
to be thankful for.
I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
R.I.P. Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of all the things I thought we were going to talk about
of all the things,
tonight,
it was the stingray. I know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Way to tough it out, Kirk.
Oh, I was not tough at the time, man. I was writhing. My wife said I sounded like I was in labor. Like the noises I was making, I sounded like I was in labor. She was like, I was feeling bad for you and I was laughing. Kind of got some recordings. No videos.
We can just reenact it. We'll just, oh man. Oh my goodness. What day of the vacation was that, Kirk? Was that?
It was towards the end, which I was grateful.
Okay.
Yeah. We were there for maybe like three more days after that. So.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, I'm glad you still have your leg. I'm glad that you're not dead.
Yes. No flesh-eating bacteria entered the wound as far as we know. And if it did, we got it with the antibiotic.
Yep.
So
I think this needs to be on the trailer for the All Ambient podcast, or at least this episode can be the stingray episode.
I felt the surge of pain.
It'll work good for the oceans themed ambient.
There you go.
Record coming out.
Yeah, you should have got some of those recordings in there. Layer them in.
One of those
the next Echoes in the Valley. Kirk's vocal samples.
You're listening to Echoes in the Valley, Volume 10.
Writhing in the ocean.
This is Kirk Smith of Legion of Eden. Hey, I've got a little story for you.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh my God, dude, that's freaking funny.
Right. I will straight up send all of my royalties from what happens in volume 10 straight to you if you name yours Writhing in the Ocean. I'll just sign them straight over to you. They're yours. They're all yours.
That's great. I'm happy to submit the track name.
Oh boy.
That's so good. Yeah. And oh, man. Yep. We're going to talk about something that we got a question from the All Ambient podcast email inbox. And I'll read this and we'll kind of dig into it. But that's a great reminder for all of our listeners that we do have podcast, that is singular, podcast at all-ambient.com. If you have any questions for any of us, or you have any thoughts that you wanted all of us to chew through as a group, please don't hesitate to say hello and give a mention. So I'm going to read this and we will dig into it. So this is from a friend, Nathaniel, who makes music as The Good Night Project, which is really great stuff. I have been enjoying that a little bit after he sent a message. But here's what he said. He said, "Hey guys, first I want to say I've loved listening to the podcast. It is really encouraging to have discovered a community I can relate to who are doing the kinds of things I dream about doing. I was ecstatic to have discovered the podcast and begin learning from the wisdom you all bring. So grateful for you. Thanks, Nathaniel. Appreciate the encouragement." So here we go. A topic I'd love to hear you guys address is imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt like your success is undeserved or too good to be true? I have always wanted to create full-time and have discovered a potential viable pathway through ambient music, which is amazing, but also a little bit scary. There's feelings of fear of success. This is too good to be true. And with imposter syndrome, I would love to know if anyone can relate to me and how they deal with it or have overcome it. I've got a full-time day job and 2 young kids, so I squeeze in the creative work when I can, but it's difficult, of course. I'm trying to stay consistent with releases going forward, as I know that's important, but would love any other tips that you all have. Thanks so much. So thanks, Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you writing in. Means the world. And yeah, this one, it struck a nerve for sure, because I know that this is something that to some degree we all, I was excited about it for a couple reasons, because I know that we all can relate to this for sure, as can like every human on the planet, but also it's such a unique phenomenon that it kind of manifests itself in different ways. I've seen it manifest itself in different ways in each person, and everybody seems to have kind of their own journey and like it seems like the main bullet points that they take away might be kind of individual or signature to each person. And that's kind of a beautiful thing, that we're all learning what we need to learn along the journey. But yeah, I think imposter syndrome is kind of the plumb line to really to all of us. So yeah, there's the question. But yeah, just even one of those first things you said, like, have you ever found that your success is undeserved or too good to be true? And then he started talking about just, the ideas of like fear of success. Yeah, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts, past dealing with it, current dealing with it. What comes to mind when you guys hear imposter syndrome and how that plays out?
My imposter syndrome does not make me want to answer first. For
Well
fear
played.
of answering wrong, right? So someone else go.
Well played.
Thank you.
Man, thank you so much for that question. I'll take a stab at it, or at least start it, and then we can go off each other. Like you said, it's like the answer is yes. Have you ever dealt with it or feel it? Or it's like yes. And I feel like I had a friend ask me if I felt it one time, and I was too afraid to admit that I had felt it. And so I kind of like changed the subject and we talked about something else. When I think about that, I feel really bad about that, because it's one of these things where it's like, I'm not going to show that side of myself if I'm not ready to deal with it myself, And so I think that was the first time I kind of even was aware of my own feelings about it. And then hearing other people talk about it helped me process. I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's what it is. And then hearing more people walk through and talk about it, it gave me more freedom to kind of be like, oh yeah, this is just a part of the human condition. And so I think, the best thing is for someone asking that question is just to hear a bunch of yeses is the first step. So it's like, we're not alone.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is like, okay, well then how do you deal with it? And I like what you said, Mike, as far as it's like everyone's going to have their own version of whatever thing they have to walk through with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the idea is we're all improvising. Everybody is improvising, meaning we're making this up as we go along. And, you know, we learn things, we try things, we fail, we succeed, and we have to be okay with failing, and we have to celebrate success. I think if we can get good at those two things, then it helps us deal with the feelings that come. Because I think whenever you push yourself, like, you know, you got 2 kids and you got the job and you got the dream and you're kind of trying to push yourself in these directions, you're going to be walking in places where you haven't walked before. And so you're going to be leaning in to the edge of your abilities. You're going to be leaning into the edge of your emotions. You're going to be leaning into the edge of your comfort zone. And so the resistance and everything you feel coming back at you is going to amplify that feeling of imposter syndrome.
Yep.
Because you're out of your comfort zone, you're at the edge of your abilities and all that kind of stuff. But that's how you kind of move forward in a person in what you're doing. So embrace that feeling, and then to like recognize the joy that you have when you're doing things and celebrate that. If nothing else, then you're moving in the right direction. Yeah. That'd be my first kind of initial thought.
Yeah. No, that's
good, man. That's good, Kirk. We talked about comparison episode or two ago, you know, comparing each other to even just to our fellow artists, you know, that make the same kind of music that we do. I feel like there's a lot of that can relate to this feeling of, you know, just feeling that, you know, I'm not as talented as you, Mike, or, you know, I can't make anything as good as you guys do. There's kind of that comparison idea that plays in there. But,
it's
you know,
quite
of course,
the opposite, in fact, Marshall.
Huh? Oh, it's quite the opposite. I only play one note on the guitar. I feel like, I mean, my answer, of course, being yes, you know, the struggle with this as well is, for me, it's like constant battle of like, how can I describe it, right? Where you feel like you are never going to be, that I can never, you know, create something as good as the thing you just created, right? Like you hold things so tightly and you have a success and you almost, it's almost hard to enjoy it sometimes, because the moment you have that success, you feel like, okay, now how am I going to do that again? Or I'm afraid that that's never going to happen again. And it almost prevents me from being able to even just celebrate it at times.
Yeah. I hear you.
And I don't know that that's so much, I mean, maybe that's a kind of imposter syndrome. I think it's a thing of just letting the joy of doing what we do kind of get away from us in a way.
Yeah, I think it is. I want to hear you keep going, but I think it's the idea that, and I think Nathaniel even referenced like the idea of fear of success, and maybe not fear of success, but the idea of like, wait, that went really well. Oh, there's no way that actually went well. Or there's no way that I'm deserving of being the one who created a project or wrote a song that got that kind of, like within the success of it, one can almost like double down on the imposter syndrome, where it's like, oh, there's no, like that's a total fluke. There's no way that's going to happen again. So I don't think you're off base at all in that. Go right ahead. I just wanted to hit that for sure. For sure. Yeah. And thanks for like unpacking that a little bit too, because that's helpful. And there's a couple things that can happen there that I think almost, you know, can be like a detriment to that and maybe feed into that a little bit, which is you do a couple things, you know, you maybe try to recreate that success, which is, you know, not allowing yourself to kind of like continue expressing yourself as an artist, right? And allowing yourself to grow, or just maybe explore some different things that you might be, maybe you're in a different space creatively. Maybe you're using different tools. You know, if I had success on this track a couple years ago that, you know, still really does well on Spotify or something, and I sat down to do that now, it's just not going to be the same track, right? It's like, I'm going to mix it differently. It's going to be sonically different. For whatever reason, it did well a couple years ago. It probably doesn't sound technically as proficient as it would now, because I'm in a different place now. You know, mixing the track is probably the same for all of us. Yeah. But trying to recreate that success is, you know, for lack of better words, in my opinion, kind of a waste of time, because it's not taking advantage of where we are now and kind of like leaning into that. So in my opinion, how to deal with that is
trying, as easier said than done, of course, but trying to embrace where we are now creatively, even if that's in like an experimental phase of trying a different sound or using different tools, and kind of letting the idea of not everything that we produce is going to be this ultimate success that necessarily comes in the same way that these past ones maybe did. Or, if we haven't found that yet, maybe we just haven't hit that stride yet. But if we're trying to have this kind of recreate something that was in the past, kind of doing, at least in my situation, in my experience, letting go of that, trying to just kind of be in the flow of things like we do in this music that we make. So much of it is improvised and in the moment of things, using what we have and just kind of, letting that go and expressing where we are. And I feel like that's when, you guys know, like that's kind of when the best stuff happens, is when, you allow yourself to just kind of be present in what you're doing without worrying so much about what this outcome is going to be.
Yep.
So that's how I think I try to deal with that. I think maybe another quick way, if that's a struggle, is maybe just to, maybe just get out of the studio for a bit and, go for a run or do whatever you do to get out of your head. I try to do that sometimes too. If things are like, I'm getting too in my head about something, getting out of the space. But yeah, that first thing is like the biggest for me.
Man, both awesome answers. And Ben, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And I think we're not just going to stop it like, hey, everybody's got one thing to say and then we're done. I think there's more bouncing off each other that we have here, but already just even both of your guys' reflections on this are already diverse enough where it really does confirm that it is a plumb line, and also that there's just each of us has such a different journey, and yet it affects us. That can be kind of a frustrating thing, because then you can't prescribe a one size fits all sort of thing to anyone, to anywhere, which really there's hardly anything in life that you can prescribe to everyone and have it actually be the solve in that sense, outside of, like a faith sort of thing. But besides that, I'm already kind of just not taken aback, but I am already just marveling a little bit at how it's affected you, Kirk, how it's, affected you, Marcia. And I know that there are going to be people who are identifying with this and identifying with that. And that's a really helpful thing. So, I think even part of maybe squashing imposter syndrome a little bit is just speaking all the different ways that it affects us out loud, and just, maybe stepping on those bugs one by one, not stepping on stingrays, but stepping on bugs one by one, and just kind of squashing them and getting them out of the way. But wow, good stuff so far. Ben, what's sitting on your heart on this?
I love the question. And Kirk, I liked how you put it, that it's just kind of part of the human condition. Because I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't feel imposter syndrome in some way, shape or form. And it's, as Marshall, you were saying, it could be to do with like your ability in a particular instrument, or your kind of capacity as a producer, or any number of these things. And you're like, the more you do this, the more you realize you don't know and that you can learn. And so you feel like inherently kind of inferior. But I think there's two things. Firstly, I think it's really helpful to realize that everyone feels this, and everyone feels like they're not essentially good enough. And in some senses, that's a good thing, because then we're all learning. But in terms of how I've coped with it over time, having done what I do now to a kind of greater or lesser extent for 10 years, I've just found that you kind of learn to live with it better. And the more you go through life and the more you feel imposter syndrome, you just kind of become comfortable with it. And that's all I can really add, is that it's got better over time as one, you go year by year by year doing what you're doing, and you're like, okay, well, whatever it is that I'm doing, even if I feel like I'm not particularly great at this or that or the other, it's working well enough for me to be able to do this. And as such, I suppose I shouldn't really feel like an imposter, even if I do. And so I will just live with those kind of feelings, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very much so. I think that kind of lines up parallel with like a broader definition of bravery. I think bravery can be mistaken for, I'm just fearless when it comes to this activity or this thing or that thing. And really, I think bravery is better defined as, I'm still pretty scared about this thing. And yet that fear, I'm not going to allow for the fear of that to stop me from moving forward still. And so, it's like, even though that imposter, it kind of exactly what you're saying, but like, even though that is still like a part of our psyche, a part of our mindset, a part of the human experience. It seems as though all of us, like along our journey, we have grown to a place where, at least to some degree, we're able to just punch through that wall regardless of if we still feel it's like, well, I still feel it, but it's time to put some work out. Let's do the thing. So yeah, that's a big deal. I've got a couple thoughts. Was somebody going to say something? I thought I saw a thing pop up. I didn't want to cut off.
I have some. Well, I have a.
Yeah. Yep.
It's. I don't know if I don't want to go too many ways, but
go as many ways as you want.
Like, do you guys ever find it interesting to, if you put yourself maybe a few years ago or even kind of early on when you were making music, producing, or even early on producing ambient music, I find it interesting if I reflect back, like it almost feels, if I come to where I am now, it's hard to feel like I'm so critical of myself now as mixing and creating, right? Like I can be so critical of a mix or of a sound, coming out of a synth or even just a plugin. And I think this, I don't know how to quite tie it to imposter syndrome the way that I'm trying to maybe formulate, but I feel like I missed something about early on, kind of the more exploring, like just the spirit of like, I was not as critical, I wasn't as familiar with mixing and I wasn't as concerned, right? I wasn't
it's like the naivety.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. Yeah.
I was just free and excited about doing this. And maybe part of that was I hadn't come this far, or even at that point made this probably a full-time career yet. And so I think maybe that's something I, even just talking about it now, would like to try and be more aware of is, when I get so stuck on like just working with a sound, when you're trying to start a piece, it's kind of like, man, just like press record and just kind of go, I'm trying to tell myself not to just feel that the first sound that you press record on needs to be absolutely perfect and that needs to be the final mixed version that's going to be coming out. So I just kind of miss that like innocent spirit of like when I started doing this, you know what I mean? Where you're just kind of enjoying it because it's kind of fresh and new and exciting. And yeah, I think that's something to keep in mind, just that we're doing this because we, love to make music and love creating, and being critical of ourselves or afraid, of failure or comparing ourselves to our peers, those are things that are human, but ultimately I think just those are good reminders of like, we're doing this because we love music and love to make it. And I think like, that's something I need to remind myself of,
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. And I think what I'm hearing too is like, there's this almost this marriage between imposter syndrome and perfectionism to where they kind of go hand in hand. Because it's like, if it's not perfect, then I'm not perfect, which means I'm an imposter, which means it's like they kind of feed each other. And so we start to have some consciousness about our craft, and then it gives our inner critic, more ammunition to then fire back on us. When we were more naive, we just were just having fun playing with the sounds. And then as we grow in our craft, we actually grow in our critique of our own craft. And so we kind of get in our own way. When you were talking, it reminded me of a quote from Picasso, and I'm going to butcher it, but basically he was saying it took him 4 years to paint like this painter. Like he was trying to learn the style and the thing of this person. He's like, it took me 4 years to learn how to paint like this guy. And he said, it took me a lifetime to learn how to paint like a child. So just that idea that we can spend this time amassing technique and tools and processes and all this kind of stuff. And all of those things are good. They push us, they grow us. But what we really need to learn is how to come back to that innocence, like you're talking about, that playfulness, to where it's like we're literally just having fun painting with these colors. And then we do that for however long we want to. And then we let our critic come back to the table and help us edit and finish these things. But it's like turning that off, turning that part of ourselves off for some time so we can just have fun with it. That's what I would say to you, Nathaniel. It's just like the thing that I think will bring you into a new season is finishing things and just developing that muscle, the muscle of finishing things. But the hardest thing is you won't start anything if you let your inner critic out at the beginning from the get-go. If he's in the room when you start, it's like you're never going to finish. So it's kind of like learn how to let go, do your thing, enjoy what you're doing, give yourself some parameters that are helpful to you, but then let them back into the room to finish it out. But work that muscle of finishing. What I say is make it till you make it.
Yeah.
So we all want to say fake it till you make it, which is kind of like, that's how I beat imposter syndrome, which in a way, it's not really faking. When you're brave, you're like, you're going after it. You're doing the things you feel like you need to do, even though it's scary. That's not necessarily faking. That's just being brave. But it's the making, make it till you make it. Don't fake it till you make it. Make it till you make it. Whatever it is for your definition of success.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to like piggyback on what Kirk was saying then, because I love what you're saying about kind of make it until you make it. It just reminded me of something that I found helpful in the early years when you're not making it. You're making the stuff, but you're not making it in terms of, doing this full time or even part time. And it's kind of really a boring thing, but it's a helpful thing, which is to kind of track how things are going month by month, year by year. Because if the trajectory is a positive one, if you're growing 50%, 100% like year on year, then you know that in 3 years, in 4 years, you're going to get to a point where, hey, this could replace 2 days of my full-time work. Or, hey, in 5 years, this could replace my entire job and I can kind of go at this full time. And for me, that is what kept me going for quite a few early years, and just being like, hey, this is working. It's slow. But when you look at the percentage increases, you're like, okay, this is going to grow. This is going to increase. And if I keep doing what I'm doing, if I keep making it until I make it, this is going to be a good thing. And I will make it, if that makes sense.
It's good.
I love it. I was going to share these 2 points the opposite direction I'm going to share them, but exactly kind of where Kirk and Ben, where you guys just landed, the one that I was thinking of sharing second. It begs to show up right now. You guys all know who Ira Glass is, the producer of This American Life. Mm-hmm. And he's done a bunch of other stuff, but rock star and creative, great kind of, thought leader in the creative space. But he's got this quote about the creative process that I've clung to for, it's probably 15 years old at this point, maybe older, but I'm going to read it because it's great. Ira Glass: nobody tells people who are beginners, and I really wish someone had told this to me, he says, that all of us who do creative work get into it because we have good taste. But there's a gap. For the first couple years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good. It's not that great. It's trying to be good. It has ambition to be good, but it's not quite that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is, well, kind of a disappointment to you. And I'm going to pause for a sec because that is a facet of imposter syndrome in a nutshell, where you're like, this thing, I want to do this thing, but you're not able to physically manifest the thing that you have the taste for. That's almost a definition of imposter. Like, I'm trying to do this, but it's falling short. And that's a big part of it for me, for sure. But anyway, back on the quote, a lot of people never get past that phase. At that point, a lot of people quit. And the thing that I would like to say to you with all my heart is that most everybody I know who does interesting creative work went through a phase of years where they had really good taste and they could tell that what they were making wasn't as good as what they wanted it to be. They knew it fell short. It didn't have that special thing. Everybody goes through that. And so for you to go through it, if you're going through it right now, if you're just coming out of that phase, you've got to know that it's totally normal. It's part of the human experience. And the most important possible thing for you to do, which is right here, make it till you make it. The most important possible thing for you to do is to do a lot of work, to do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline. So every week, every month, you're going to finish at least one story, one song, one release, whatever it is, because it's only by going through a huge volume of work that you're actually going to start catching up and closing that gap where the work you're making will be as good as your taste, as good as your ambitions. And then he just finishes. He says, in my case, it took longer to figure out how to do this than anybody else I've ever met to close that gap. It takes a while. It's going to take a while. It's normal for it to take a while, but you just have to fight your way through it. And I mean, that just like reaffirms everything that everyone here has said on all the facets. But I love that. And I really cling to that it's like, we're not deficient if we really like a certain thing and want to make a certain thing and think we've got what it takes to make that thing. But then like our first fruits into it, or the efforts after a year or two just still aren't quite hitting it. It's literally just how it goes, right? Like, you got to put in the reps, and that's an okay thing. Yeah. I think especially with social media and all that, like, we can start to believe that this stuff happens really fast and it happens with zero effort. And of course, none of that is true. All the good things are the hard work. The other thing about imposter syndrome, though, that was just kind of settling on me, and I was talking with somebody about this recently, just the idea that for anyone who is seeking a job from an employer, there's kind of that exchange of like, hey, you're hired for the job. And in that moment, you're almost being told like, wow, I am good enough for this. Like, I am not an imposter. I am now a valued employee at XYZ company, blah, 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 which is great. Like, cool. That's people lining up with a job that works for them. And that's awesome. In the world of, especially in the world of creative work, but certainly in a world of just independent working for yourself, no one's gonna tell you that ever. Like, I never had somebody who came up to me and said, you know what would be really great, Mike, is if you made a bunch of cinematic ambient music and you called it something like Dear Gravity, and like you would be perfect for that. It might take a while for you to kind of figure it out, but I think that's something that's really important for you to do. No one said it. You know, like even going through it for a while, like still no one really even cared. I loved doing it, but it wasn't as though it was an immediate traction sort of thing or an immediate, like I had my sound honed in right away. Still honing in a sound. We're all still honing in sounds. But all that to say, like I can see how there's an avenue of imposter syndrome that is just waiting for some affirmation, right? Waiting for someone to just say like, yeah, you know what? You really are good. Yeah. You know what? Yeah, that really was great. You do belong in this lane. You do belong on this label. You do belong with this, you know, whatever, this award or this, whatever it looks like. And like those things are fine when they come, but they are so few and far between that if I am basing my self-worth on waiting for someone else to tell me that it is important that I do what I do, instead of just believing through and through that in fact I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing, I think that can add to imposter syndrome really quickly. Feels like lighter fluid pouring right on the top of it all. So yeah,
that's good.
I think that's huge. You said it right there at the end. It's like the hardest thing for an artist to do, especially someone who's maybe trying to start their own thing and they're just kind of doing it, is to believe in yourself, to believe that it's possible, to believe that you can do it. I mean, all the other stuff is complicated and, you know, figuring out platforms and mastering and deadlines and artwork and blah, blah, blah. And, but believing in yourself, believing that you can do it, believing that it will work. If you don't have that faith, then you're not going to do the work. And if you do the work, it's not going to be sustainable without the faith, you know, like the faith and the work, they're one and the same. And so you're not always going to believe that it's going to work, and you're not always going to work even when you like have the hope to do it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a balance, but you have to do the work, celebrate the fruits, let go of the negative stuff, and have faith and believe in yourself. And that is part of the work, you know. What is the work? Well, the work a lot of times is to believe, which then it's not just like sitting in a room thinking this is going to work, but it's as you're doing the thing that you're doing, you're like, I'm building something. I see it happening. It might take a year, it might take 3 years, it might take 5 years, but I love this. And I don't want to I have to do this. I want to do this. Yeah. I enjoy it. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm a friendlier person to be around when I'm being creative. I need it. I need this to be part of my life. It might not be my full-time thing right away. It might not be my full-time thing ever, but I love it and I have to do it. And I believe it's part of who I am, and I'm going to do it. You know, and so when you have that kind of faith and belief, then it will empower your actions and will sustain you to keep going.
That's it right there for sure. Nathaniel, I hope that was a decent answer for you. No, really though. Thank you so much, Nathaniel, for asking the question. And yeah, just another reminder to everyone who's listening, if you have any questions for us or you want to hear us talk about something that's on your heart or just something that you're interested in learning a little bit more about, you can email us at podcast@all-ambient.com. But Nathaniel, I hope it was helpful to you. And I know that there's a lot of listeners out there who are going to find something to identify with for sure in this journey of imposter syndrome and creativity and how it all intersects on this journey we all call life. And thank you guys so much for being vulnerable. Some of these are, you know, a little more lighthearted than others. They all take thought. They all take a lot of heart, but some of them are a little bit more, you got to stick your neck out a little bit and expose things. And this was definitely one of those, showed a little bit more of kind of our inner workings to a deeper level. So thank you guys for pressing in to that with each other. And yeah, this is just really sweet. But I'm already looking forward to the next time. Grateful for you guys. Yeah, let's wrap her. Have a wonderful night. And thanks again for being part of the roundtable.
Cool. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the All Ambient podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can catch every conversation we have with all these incredible people who share the same passion. I'm looking forward to the next time, and I hope you are too. Can't wait to see you then, and until then, have an incredible day. Here's hoping this music and the heart behind it makes your day and life that much better. We'll see you next time.